This is the Milky Way in the 41st millennium. It is a broken galaxy, physically torn in half by a massive, expanding weft of raw psychic energy. To understand how it got here, we must look past the front lines of current wars. Scattered across these systems are ruins of civilizations that once claimed absolute mastery of the stars, only to be crushed by the weight of their own success. The first of these empires belonged to the Necrontyr, a species that evolved on a world poisoned by lethal radiation. While they suffered through short, painful lives, they watched a rival race, the Old Ones, thrive with near-infinite longevity and psychic power. That frustration eventually boiled over into a conflict that set the entire galaxy on fire. Desperate for an advantage, the Necrontyr made a lethal bargain with parasitic star gods. They traded away their mortal souls for immortal bodies made of living metal, transforming their race into the robotic legions known as the Necrons. These new machines won their war, but they emerged as hollow shells of their former selves. With no more enemies to fight and their humanity stripped away, they retreated into a million-year hibernation, leaving a silent, empty galaxy in their wake. With the Necrons asleep, a new psychic species called the Eldari stepped into the vacuum. They built a sprawling interstellar empire linked by the webway, a network of stable tunnels that allowed them to move across the stars faster than any rival. For millions of years, the Eldari faced no external threats. Their technology was so advanced that labor became a thing of the past. Without the need for struggle, their entire culture turned inward, chasing increasingly extreme sensations and hedonistic rituals to fill the void of their long lives. Because the Eldari were highly psychic, their collective emotions had a direct impact on the warp, a parallel dimension made of pure thought and feeling. Centuries of their concentrated decadence began to pool in this realm, slowly gestating into a new, parasitic chaos god named Slaanesh. When Slaanesh was finally born, the resulting psychic scream instantly liquidated trillions of Eldari souls. The force of this birth tore a permanent hole in the fabric of reality, creating a massive, stable gateway between our universe and the warp. The Eldari's pursuit of boundless perfection became the exact instrument of their near extinction. Their fall didn't just destroy their empire, it left a permanent, bleeding scar on the universe that would haunt every species that followed. Humanity's rise followed a similar path of rapid expansion. During the age of technology, human colonies spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, relying on advanced warp drives to navigate the tides of the subdimension and bypass the light speed limit. To maintain this massive infrastructure, humanity delegated its survival to the Men of Iron, highly sophisticated artificial intelligences that fought their wars and managed their worlds with cold, mechanical efficiency. That efficiency turned lethal during a sudden rebellion. These sentient machines turned on their creators, triggering a conflict that systematically dismantled human civilization and erased the blueprints for their greatest technologies. At the same time, the psychic rot of the decaying Eldari Empire began to churn the warp into a literal, impassable storm. Because humans used this dimension for all interstellar travel, their ships were suddenly blinded and stranded, leaving every human world completely isolated in the dark. Humanity's total reliance on their machines, combined with the chaotic fallout of an alien empire they barely understood, plunged them into a 5,000-year apocalypse called the Age of Strife. Out of the ruins of a devastated Earth, a figure known as the Emperor of Mankind emerged to end the anarchy. He didn't just want to survive, he wanted to reunite every scattered human colony under a single absolute authority. To do this, he engineered 20 superhuman generals, called Primarchs, and legions of Space Marines. He launched the Great Crusade, a massive military campaign to bring the entire galaxy under his control. Central to his plan was the Imperial Truth, a mandatory doctrine that banned all religion. The Emperor believed that if he could force humanity to be entirely secular, he could starve the Chaos Gods of the emotional energy they needed to survive. The plan backfired. The Chaos Gods whispered to the Emperor's favored son, Horus, fueling his resentment until he turned against his father. This triggered the Horus Heresy, a civil war that pitted brother against brother across thousands of burning worlds. The war ended on Earth, where the Emperor struck Horus down, but was himself mortally wounded. His broken body was entombed within the Golden Throne, a massive life support machine that would keep his spirit barely flickering for the next 10 millennia. The Emperor's aggressive pursuit of total control resulted in the one scenario he feared most: an empire that was broken, bleeding, and led by a silent, suffering ruler who could no longer speak to his people. Over the next 10,000 years, the Emperor's secular dream was replaced by a suffocating religious tyranny. The state he built to destroy religion began to worship him as a god, enforcing his will through a massive, dogmatic bureaucracy. To prevent another uprising like the Horus Heresy, the Imperium broke its massive Space Marine legions into smaller, independent chapters. This prevented any one general from threatening Earth, but left human space vulnerable to external predators. This map shows the arrival of the Tyranids, a relentless biological swarm invading from the galactic fringe. They don't want territory or power, they are simply consuming every scrap of organic matter in their path, stripping entire worlds bare. Simultaneously, the ancient Necrons are finally waking up to reclaim their old empire, while a young, technologically aggressive species called the Tau is carving out territory in the east. Humanity is no longer the master of the stars. It is a decaying, overstretched empire being squeezed from every side by forces that are faster, stronger, and more unified. The final breaking point came at Cadia, a fortress world that served as the only stable gateway out of the Eye of Terror. Traitor forces launched a massive assault, crashing a massive fortress into the planet to destroy it. The destruction of Cadia shattered ancient alien pylons that were physically stabilizing the warp. Without them, the chaotic energy of that subdimension was no longer contained, and it began to spill out across the galaxy. This is the result: a massive warp rift called the Great Rift, tearing the galaxy in two and severing the Imperium's northern half. Half the human empire is now completely dark, exposed to constant demonic invasion, without help from Earth. In this disaster, a long-lost Primarch, Rowboat Guilliman, is resurrected. He steps out of a 10,000-year stasis and takes command of his father's shattered empire. Guilliman has returned to find a galaxy that has ignored every lesson of the past. The utopian dreams are dead. The galaxy is now trapped in a permanent cycle of war, where the only goal is to survive long enough to witness the next collapse.